we're going to talk about memory, RAM, and ROM. You may already know about these things, but this might be a good review. In a typical computer, typical PC, we would use this non-ECC RAM that you see here. Now, RAM is usually on these sticks, and you plug it and unplug it from the computer to add more or to exchange it or something. The non-ECC RAM is less expensive, and so this is what you might find in a home PC. However, in a server, we almost always use ECC RAM. So this is a bit more expensive, but as you can see, it has this extra chip on it, so it has a 9th chip. This helps correct corrupted bits and bytes as they go in and out of this RAM stick. Now, RAM is volatile. That is to say, when we remove power, the RAM loses all of its memory. It takes a few seconds for it to clear out, but give it a good 10 or 20 seconds and it will clear all of the RAM out because it is what we call volatile. Now, ROM, on the other hand, is usually not in a stick that you plug and unplug. It's usually soldered right into the board, and ROM means a read-only memory, whereas RAM means random access memory. Now, read-only memory is what it sounds like. You can read from it, but you can't typically write to it. Now, there are special cases, and that is the BIOS and the UEFI chip. BIOS is the older version, UEFI is the newer version. And we call these ROM, although typically you read from them, but you can write to them. The old BIOS style actually was volatile. And so here's the chip on this board, and over here is this battery. We had to keep the battery running all the time, these 2032 batteries that you can pick up almost anywhere, dollar store now or any supermarket. And this battery had to keep a charge on this BIOS chip in order to keep the memory. Now, this BIOS chip kept things in it like what hardware is in the machine, what's the date and time, what is the boot setting. In other words, do you boot from a disk, from a CD first, or do you boot from the hard drive first, that kind of thing. And it typically used this very non-graphic style interface. The UEFI, and by the way, we often call this UEFI BIOS. That's really not a good term. It should just be called UEFI, but they're used interchangeably today. It does not have a battery. It uses flash memory, and it has a more graphic look in the settings. This is easier to change and to program than the old BIOS style was. BIOS chips were usually programmed in assembly language, whereas UEFI chips are typically programmed in a higher level language.